Anita left the hospital with the world tilting around her, each step feeling like she was walking through a thick, invisible fog. The diagnosis pulsed in her mind like a cruel whisper she couldn't erase. 3 months. A brain tumor hidden behind her strength, her discipline, her desperate attempts to hold everything together. For weeks, she had forced herself to train harder, to ignore the shifting pressures in her skull, to pretend that the emotions spiraling around Martin, Danny, and Andre were the real reason she felt like collapsing. Now, the truth pressed against her ribs like a blade. Her body had declared war on her without warning, and she had already lost. She sat in her car, staring at the steering wheel, feeling a wave of fury rise so sharply it nearly choked her. It wasn't fair. She had given everything to everyone, her team, her dreams, the fragile relationships she kept trying to mend. She had carried burdens that were not hers, absorbed guilt that didn't belong to her, made sacrifices for people who didn't know how to stay. To receive this blow now, exactly when she finally believed she deserved better, felt like a deliberate act of cruelty from the universe. Back at home, her hands trembled as she rummaged through her old notebooks, the ones filled with goals, plans, promises to herself. Each page felt like mockery. The future she had written in hopeful ink suddenly meant nothing. A rage she had never known clawed at her chest, demanding release. She tore through the pages until they scattered across the floor like broken feathers, but even that destruction felt hollow and insignificant. Anita had always been the glue holding the group together, the quiet force smoothing over conflicts between Martin's recklessness, Danny's jealousy, and Andre's secretive tendencies. They needed her, but in ways that drained her rather than uplifted her. She had excused their betrayals, overlooked their selfishness, and stitched the fabric of their lives together again and again. Now she saw how little of that energy had ever been returned. Martin sensed her withdrawal first. He had always relied on her steadiness to balance his impulsive decisions, and without her presence he spiraled back into old habits, reckless nights, dangerous risks, and the growing suspicion that he was losing control of everything. Danny interpreted her silence differently. To him, it was a sign of rejection, a threat to the fragile position he believed he had secured in her life.
His obsession tightened into something sharper, something darker. Andre, meanwhile, retreated further into secrecy, haunted by the fear that Anita had uncovered truths he had buried long ago. Each man, in his own way, felt the ground shifting beneath him, but none of them understood the magnitude of what she carried. Anita kept the diagnosis to herself. She convinced herself it was better this way. She didn't want their pity, nor their frantic attempts to fix what could not be fixed. She didn't want to watch them crumble under the weight of her mortality. Yet deep down, she knew a darker truth. She didn't trust them to stay. Their loyalty had always been conditional, fragile, easily swayed by ego and insecurity. To reveal her weakness felt like giving them permission to leave. Her anger intensified with each passing day. She found herself staring at the people around her, not with affection, but with a bitter sense of betrayal. She felt abandoned, even by those who didn't know they were abandoning her. Every memory of laughter, intimacy, or trust became stained with resentment. She replayed moments when she had needed someone to notice her exhaustion or ask if she was okay. No one had. She had been bleeding quietly for so long that the world became accustomed to stepping over her suffering without pausing. Her symptoms worsened. Headaches now came in violent pulses, distorting her vision and forcing her to grip furniture just to stay upright. She avoided mirrors because her reflection didn't look like her anymore. It looked like someone being slowly erased. She pushed herself harder in a futile attempt to outrun the truth, training until her muscles trembled and her lungs burned, trying to prove that she still had control. But her body betrayed her again and again and again. The fury transformed into a haunting sense of urgency. She needed to confront the people who had shaped her downfall. She needed them to understand what they had taken from her, not through blame, but through truth. Yet every time she tried to speak, the words dissolved on her tongue. Her silence became a prison. Martin spiraled deeper into chaos. Without Anita's guiding presence, he grew paranoid that she had discovered something about him, something he had worked tirelessly to hide. His decisions became reckless, his relationships fell apart, and every step he took seemed to push him closer to disaster. He blamed his unraveling life on Anita's absence, feeding the quiet resentment growing inside him. Danny, fueled by insecurity, convinced himself that Anita had abandoned him for someone else. His fixation transformed into anger. He spent hours analyzing her social media, reading into every post, every absence, every change in tone. His anxiety hardened into suspicion, and suspicion into hostility. He believed she had betrayed him long before he ever stopped to wonder if she was struggling. Andre remained the calmest on the surface, but internally he was collapsing. Anita's distance triggered memories of his own past failures, the secrets he had sworn to bury, the promises he had broken. He felt the echo of a loss he didn't yet understand, and it aided him like guilt, even though he didn't know what he should feel guilty for. He became cold, distant, withdrawn, not out of malice, but out of a fear so deep it paralyzed him. Each man, consumed by his own turmoil, unknowingly mirrored Anita's internal conflict. Their anger fed her anger. Their silence amplified hers. Their assumptions widened the gulf between them until every relationship felt like a battlefield. Anita's condition worsened rapidly. The tumor, aggressive and unforgiving, craved her remaining strength. She collapsed twice in a single week, each time recovering alone, refusing to call for help. She felt herself shrinking, not just physically but emotionally, becoming a ghost in her own life. Every decision she made felt like a countdown. Every morning felt like a negotiation with her own mortality. The resentment inside her transformed into something more dangerous, the belief that her life had been wasted on people who never truly saw her. This belief wrapped around her heart like a vice, tightening with every reminder of what she had given and what she would now lose. She grew cold, sharp, unreachable. She stopped answering messages, ignored calls, and pushed away anyone who tried to approach her. If she was going to die, she didn't want to die being misunderstood, but she also didn't want to die begging for affection from people who had failed her. Her nights became battlegrounds of regret and fury. She lay awake replaying the choices she had made, every sacrifice, every compromise, every moment she chose someone else over herself. She realized she had spent years adjusting her boundaries to accommodate people who would never have done the same for her. The tumor felt like a physical manifestation of everything she had swallowed, everything she had locked away, everything she had endured without complaint. But the most devastating conflict came from within. She hated herself for resenting the people she once cared for. She hated that she wanted them to hurt in the same way she was hurting. She hated that the anger gave her strength, even as the illness stripped her of it. She felt monstrous, yet powerless. She felt betrayed by her body, yet guilty for blaming others. Every emotion contradicted another, leaving her adrift in a sea of confusion and pain. The tension between all four of them built like a storm. Small misunderstandings intensified into silent battles. Anita's withdrawal created a vacuum that each man filled with his own darkest assumptions. Their anger collided with hers, even though none of them fully understood the cause. Each believed they were the one being wronged. Each believed the others were hiding something. The truth sat between them like an unexploded mine. The final push came when Anita's condition reached a critical point. She lost vision in one eye for nearly an hour, collapsing in the hallway of her empty apartment. As she lay there, unable to move, she realized she had run out of time, not just medically, but emotionally. She had allowed anger to consume what little life she had left. She had allowed fear to silence her. She had allowed the people she loved, or thought she loved, to drift so far that none of them realized she was dying. When she finally dragged herself upright, something inside her had shifted. She wasn't calmer, she wasn't more at peace. Instead, the fury became sharper, more focused. She needed them to see what they had done. She needed them to understand the weight she had carried alone. She needed them to feel her absence before she even left this world. Not out of cruelty, but out of a desperate need for truth. Her next steps would ripple through all their lives. Martin's unraveling confidence, Danny's obsessive insecurity, Andre's buried guilt. The storm she carried inside her was about to break open, and none of them were prepared for what would come of it. But Anita no longer cared about the consequences. She had 3 months left. 3 months to unravel every hidden truth, expose every lie, confront every betrayal, and force each person to face the reality she had suffered alone. Her illness had become more than a death sentence. It was a catalyst, a final, devastating reckoning that would change every life connected to hers. And in the shadows of that countdown, each of them felt the shift in the air, the sense that something irreversible had already begun, long before they learned the truth that would shatter them all.